This is Viva Fry in Final Cut Pro. If you don't know who I am, Viva Fry, make sure that you like this video, subscribe, drop a comment because it feeds the algorithm, and turn on notifications so you get notified whenever I put out some of my clips, some of my videos. Viva Fry, people. Here you go. Let's see what we're talking about today. To the news of the day. I have a question, and I put it to an open question on Twitter, which is only going to be accused of being a loaded question, an accusation, whatever. Secretary Noem, Kristi Noem's press conference yesterday that Padilla interrupted. Was it an official government proceeding? Many of you are going to know exactly where I'm going with this. There are judicial proceedings, there are government proceedings, and Canadian civil lawyer, former, schnook, know nothing about American criminal law, American politics, other than what I've learned over the last 7 years, which is a whole hell of a lot. But I asked the question because I sincerely want to know the answer. And we'll see if the aggregate knowledge of the Twitterverse has procured us an answer. Probably not. Okay, well, that's not a right answer. Good question. Well, that's all right. Absolutely, with no source. We need sources for this. Now, we were looking in the backdrop, trying to do these things, pull up judicial obstruction is different than obstruction of a government proceeding. One interpretation said it's loosely, not necessarily defined. If it's an official press conference for an official update on official government conduct, it could potentially be qualified as such. For those asking, schnook is the lesser version of a schmuck. Schmuck is rude. Schnook is an idiot. Schmuck is a dick. So now you've had, I don't even know if that's Yiddish, by the way. So let me get this out of here. So that was my question. For reasons that are obvious as the sun is hot, Alex Padilla had his moment yesterday. It's like you understand what it means when you throw a brick through your own campaign headquarters and then hold a press conference to say how you were attacked. Alex Padilla wanted everything that happened. He would have been happier if he'd gotten tased. It would have been like a bigger sacrifice to take for the team. He had his momentary outburst of the most scripted and juvenile type. He did not get arrested, people. All right. So don't make no mistake. But when I make a point later on, you're going to understand why I'm making that distinction. He didn't get arrested. He got detained. Is he going to sue? Who knows? He wasn't clear about that on a press conference. He's doing the tours of media now, the legacy propaganda media. We don't know if he's going to sue. Maybe we'll see. Mayor Baraka over in New Jersey thanked Alina Habba for dropping the charges for trespass with a civil lawsuit. No good deed goes unpunished. And when you use kitty gloves on scoundrels, they will slap you back with no gloves. So Bongino yesterday takes to Twitter and says, rightly, like people don't seem to understand this either, saying your Senator Alex Padilla is all fine and well. I can say that too. It doesn't make me Alex Padilla. Dan Bongino tweets out yesterday, with regard to the incident in LA this afternoon, the senator in question was not wearing a security pin and physically resisted law enforcement when confronted. Our FBI personnel acted completely appropriately while assisting Secret Service, and we are grateful for their professionalism and service. Agreed. And I say Padilla is a jackass who acted like a jackass and got what he deserved. The only problem is he also got what he wanted, which is to get arrested because his followers are idiots who will gobble this up and cry authoritarianism. And if you haven't been on the interwebs today, that is precisely and exactly what you see going on. One idiot sycophant after another. This is what authoritarianism looks like. Now they've crossed the line. Oh my God. It's almost as though they've forgotten that they arrested the former president, leading presidential candidate, and perp walked him in Georgia. It's almost like they forgot that they arrested his lawyers and forced some of them into plea deals. It's almost as if they forgot that they tried to lawfare into jail, lawfare into bankruptcy, and assassinate the former president and now current president. And they want to cry about some jackass getting arrested for acting like, he didn't get arrested, detained for acting like a jackass. Padilla is doing the media tour now. And I listened to an interview with him on MSNBC, Pravda Extraordinaire. And I have a very critical thinking mind in that I can detect lies. I've studied philosophy. I used to be a lawyer. I can play I don't play the games, but I can detect when people are playing the games. And I can pick out lies pretty easily, especially when you contradict yourself 3 times, maybe more, in the space of 9 minutes. I've got a decent memory. And I put together a bit of a montage of Alex Padilla contradicting himself and acting like a total jackass in his public statements that many people might overlook or not notice. This is him on MSNBC earlier today. Forgive the edit or appreciate the edit, depending on which way you want to go with this. Listen to this.
If this can happen to a United States senator for having the audacity to ask a question.
I'm going to pause it. I have such a problem keeping my mouth shut. The framing, the dishonest, all I was doing was asking a question from the same people who say to the Tucker Carlsons of the world, you can't ask questions. You know what you're doing when you're asking questions. All I was doing was asking questions. If this can happen to a United States senator, you tried to lock up the president, you dumb asses. You locked up 1,500, 1,600 January 6ers with no due process whatsoever. And I'm not saying return the favor. I'm saying you guys are a bunch of hypocritical, commie, Marxist pieces of shit. But you know that. Now I'm going to shut my mouth. I'm going to let it play through. I'm going to take one last sip. There's nothing left.
If this can happen to a United States senator for having the audacity to ask a question.
Guys, ready? And balancing. Sir, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
hands off. Do you know how tall Alex Padilla is? Even assuming you know who it is. That man is 6'3". That man is a solid foot taller than me. That man, you can tell in his voice, was unhinged. Like you know when someone's he looked sincerely enraged. It's the sincerely enraged people that throw shoes, pull out knives, assault. Go look at the dude who jumped over the judge's bench and assaulted the judge. That's what they look like. The fact that he says he's Alex Padilla, no ID, despite being a senator, I think they have government-issued IDs. But no, it was abusive. He said he was Alex Padilla. Oh, listen to this.
Secretary Noem said that you, quote, lunged towards her at this press conference. The Department of Homeland Security said the Secret Service believed that you were an attacker. And the Department of Homeland Security called this political theater. What's your response and what's your version of what happened?
Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. It's a lie, but par for the course for this administration. They were not communicative until somebody from, I'm sure, Secretary Noem's team figured out I was who I said I was and finally said, let him go.
Oh, they figured out you actually were who you said you were because you didn't have any idea on you in the first place. And other than being an unhinged 6'3" lunatic, lunging, accosting Kristi Noem. Oh, I said I'm Alex Padilla, so I therefore get to interfere with, obstruct what might be an official government proceeding. Kristi Noem giving an update on what's going on in LA.
Secretary Noem said that you, quote, lunged towards her at this press conference.
I have questions.
What do you call this?
The secretary.
And I'm sitting in the back of the room behind the cameras, behind the reporters.
By the way, listen to how he explains how he came in there. He wasn't even in the right room. He was watching it in another room, and he got so angry at the lies. He came in, and then he's behind the cameras, and he got so angry he had to come in front of the cameras and lunge at Kristi Noem.
Listening. And at one point, it was just too much to take.
I have questions for the secretary.
There was no threat. There was no lunging.
I have questions for the secretary.
They were not communicative until somebody from, I'm sure, Secretary Noem's team figured out I was who I said I was and finally said, let him go. There was no threat. There was no lunging. I raised my voice to ask a question.
There was no threat. There was no lunging. I lunged. Oh, and I also raised my voice. But it was only because I was so passionately caring about what's going on to illegal aliens in LA.
Took maybe half a second before multiple agents were on me.
She said you barged into the room, or you basically broke into the room. I'm paraphrasing here.
And I spent a few minutes in the back of the room just listening in until the political rhetoric got to be too much.
Then I had to charge.
I have questions
I had to charge
the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
It's not about me.
It's not
Again,
about
this
me.
is the biggest point. It's not about me. You think she might have started the meeting with an apology of what happened. Of course not. It's not about me. Again, this is the biggest point. It's not about me. You think she might have started the meeting with an apology of what happened.
It's not about me. She didn't even apologize because I approached in line. I raised my voice, came in from behind the cameras because I was so impassioned. It's not about me. She didn't even apologize. Hypocrites, losers, dumbasses, and scoundrels. And by the way, when they say it's not about me, they mean it's about me. It's always about them. These narcissist, pathological sons of bitches, it's always about them. Justin Trudeau celebrating whatever Memorial Day. Here's a picture of me. Here's a Jamie Rascin. The brutal handcuffing of Senator Padilla is an affront to democracy. I'm joining the House Democrats to march to Senator Thune's office and to demand that he protect his colleagues. Capital C, think much of yourself, you arrogant piece of crap, from this out-of-control authoritarian onslaught. Oh, the brutal handcuffing. But first, let me take a selfie. Oh yeah, look at this. He's such a man. Pathological narcissists. Also, pathological liars. Now, Senator Duckworth, I said to Senator Duckworth, like, Senator Duckworth, some people are going to disagree with this, deserves honor and respect for her sacrifice in a war that maybe she should never have been in the first place. When I have my discussions with veterans, and one of the questions I always ask, and it's a difficult question, it's sort of like asking a boxer who's suffering from CTE at the end of his career, would you do it all again if you could? And it's like it's asking an impossible question. The boxer has brain damage and has no choice to redo his life, has to live with it. So you ask him, would you have done things differently that led to your permanent traumatic injury now? It's an unfair question because the answer can never be yes. Senator Duckworth lost both of her legs I don't know if it was in combat, it was in a helicopter crash. And she deserves respect, as do all veterans, for the sacrifice they made in service of country. I do question whether or not Senator Duckworth, in fact, I don't have to doubt it with her because she was very, very ready and willing to send other people's children off to Ukraine. So she doesn't seem to have learned the right lessons of war, that maybe the war in Iraq was not justified. Maybe the war in Iraq was manufactured for the military-industrial complex, for regime change, for rich men in back rooms sending young men to die in battle, young men and women. Anybody who goes and fights in that war, the Iraq war, knowing what we know now and saying anything other than I feel used and abused by a maliciously dishonest government, I'm skeptical of. The fact that Tammy Duckworth lost both of her legs in service makes me respect her as a veteran. That doesn't make me respect her judgment. And when she's ready to go send other people's children off to lose their legs and lose their lives, I ask whether or not she learned the right lessons from her own service. So she deserves honor for her service, but she does not deserve to have her stupid, absolutely idiotic positions unchallenged on Twitter. Senator Duckworth says a lie. Quote, I am Senator Alex Padilla, end quote, is the first thing he says. There is nothing the Trump administration won't lie about. That is a lie, Tammy Duckworth. That is a lie. And it's ironic because A, it's a lie, and B, it's almost as though you think we don't have the internet. And you accuse the Trump administration of there's nothing they won't lie about while lying. Tammy, you are the gosh-forsaken liar. But don't trust me. Trust the internet. Don't trust your lying eyes, people.
I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this. Hands up. Also, I want to talk to Senator Alex Padilla.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did he just say there? I am Senator Alex Padilla. Was that the first thing he said? Tammy? You hard of hearing? Tammy?
So I want to say
she's in the middle of talking.
thank you.
This unhinged lunatic comes out from behind the cameras, accosts her within, 12 feet? Doesn't say, I am Senator Padilla, as if even if he said that as the first thing, oh, okay, he looks like Senator Padilla, let him in. As if even if it is Senator Padilla, he might not be so embroiled in a passionate fit of rage that he wouldn't do anything himself. Oh no, but he said it. First thing he says, lie. Second thing, even if he said it, irrelevant. They don't know who the hell this jackass is. plain clothes, enraged, interrupting a conference that's ongoing, coming from behind the cameras by his own admission after having come from another room because he was so angry.
Secretary, I want to know why you insist
So I want
on
to say thank you to
exaggerating
every
and
single
embellishing.
person
Sir,
that has
sir,
been able to do this.
hands up, hands up.
Also, I want to talk
Senator Alex Padilla, I have questions for the secretary. Secretary, I want to know why you
Yeah, we got that. Wrong, Senator Duckworth. You're either dumb or a liar. I am Senator Padilla is not the first thing he says. In fact, he only says it after. Madam Secretary, I want to know why you insist on exaggerating, embellishing, yada, 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 while being physically resisting being removed, while also not wearing any identification or press credentials. So which is it? Dumb or a liar? Or is it a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B? You can go ask her the question yourself. But remember, everybody, it's the Trump administration that lies. Confession through projection. It is the iron law of woke projection. Here's the link to the tweet. And we're not yet done with the idiots being idiots. You know what the funny thing is? I'll play this one through. Here's Cory Booker, another pathological liar. Go Google what Cory Booker has lied about. Let me do it right now while I play the video. Go look at what he's lied about. What was the guy's name? T-Bone? They are pathological liars of the highest order, making the campaign pitch after having thrown the brick through their own window. The one thing I did notice is that Cory Booker seems to be enjoying the DC life, if you get my drift. Listen to this.
If you could make Alex Padilla forcibly kneel before this executive, when does it stop? He's a United States senator. And if you could force him to kneel to his knees violently, when does it stop? What does it say to other Americans who want to speak up? What does it say to other Americans that want to exercise their constitutional duty?
You know what it says? Don't be a jackass about it. Wait for the Q&A period. Oh, but Padilla was complaining that he wasn't getting the Kristi Noem time that he wanted. Don't obstruct and don't act like an unhinged lunatic. That's what it says. I know it's a crazy thing, eh? This crazy thing called decorum.
What does it say to other Americans this weekend when they want to peacefully protest? What does it say to other Americans from humble backgrounds?
What the fuck is he even talking about? You know what's funny though? Go look up, go Google Cory Booker weight. It's not me. I'll have to bring it up while I do this so you don't think I'm an asshole. But
who know poverty, that if a United States senator who stands up to do his job can be made to heel, driven to his knees, violently handcuffed, what does it say? What message does it send? Everybody in this body should see that this is a crossroads. They treated a member of the United States Senate violently.
But by the way, the old expression, when your argument is strong on facts, pound on the facts. When your argument's strong in law, pound on the law. And when your argument is absolute shite, pound on the table. Look at that. Impassioned. Moron. Brain dead idiot.
After he identified himself, dragged him out.
That's it. I asked Senator Duckworth, hey, so someone comes up to you in the field in Iraq and says, hi, I'm security. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Well, they've identified themselves. Do you understand what identify yourself means, Booker? I mean, considering your friend was T-Bone back in the day, I think you know what it means. Yeah, I'm the Queen of England. I've identified myself. You have any ID to identify yourself? Oh, what's that? Once he identified who he was and they actually understood who he was, they then let him go? Should have charged his ass.
Out of a room, threw him upon the ground, and put him in handcuffs. Every member of this body should object to that. Why? Because the statement was that he was disrespectful. That is unacceptable. That is offensive.
It wasn't that he was disrespectful at all. It's that he was unhinged and menacing.
That is un-American.
Oh, yeah.
When you drive a man to his knees in the United States of America, that is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong. This is a test. This is
I can't listen to this jackass anymore. But I noticed that, you know, he's enjoying the DC life. And I noticed that other journalists had noticed it before. This is back in the day. Once fit Cory Booker packs on the pounds. He actually might look a little bit better now. But it's an amazing thing. You sit there sucking at the teat of government for too long, and lo and behold, you become a pig. Spiritually, metaphorically, metaphysically, ideologically, intellectually, and in some cases physically. Now, I was going to ask the question, what has Cory Booker lied about? Let me see. I'm just asking Grok. The T-Bone story. One of the most prominent accusations involves Booker's repeated references to a Newark drug dealer named T-Bone during his time as mayor and in campaign speeches. Booker described T-Bone as a real person who threatened him, but later became a friend, sharing emotional moments. Critics, including the National Review in 2013, questioned T-Bone's existence, noting that no one in Newark could verify a drug dealer by that name. Claims about the riots being peaceful. Recent posts on X from June 2025 alleged that Booker described certain riots as peaceful and was contradicted by the Los Angeles police. They're so peaceful they had to declare a curfew, you effing idiot. Exaggerations during political speeches, saving a gunshot victim, delivering diapers during a snowstorm, eulogy for a Newark activist, and what was the other one? Fake Benjamin Franklin quotes. Abortion stance during 2013 Senate debate. National Review in 2013 claimed Booker lied during a Senate debate by saying he supported the law of the land on women's rights to choose, implying moderation. Critics argued his voting record on advocacy showed stronger support for unrestricted abortion access. Financial claims about speaking engagements. A February 2025 X post claimed Booker said he made money from speaking engagements, which senators are prohibited from doing. The allegation lacks corroboration as primary sources, and no evidence confirms Booker made such a statement or violated Senate rules. PolitiFact fact checks. PolitiFact has rated several of Booker's statements over the years, finding some to be misleading or partially false, though not necessarily lies. Booker's a liar, and he's a dumb one at that. So they're making their heyday out of this Padilla setup, and people are on the bandwagon. Now, hold on. There was one more here. There was one more, and it had to do with, oh, yes, that man, Rick Wilson. Rick Wilson, I was going to start the show with this, but then I didn't want this being the first statement of the show. Rick Wilson, do you all know who he is? Some of you might use certain terms to describe him that I won't use, but he has been accused of having interest in young boys. He once upon a time said this, and the context doesn't make it any better.
Just sit back on the sidelines and say, oh, well, don't worry, this will all work itself out. They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. Just sit back on the sidelines and say,
it was about the donor class.
Oh, well,
he said the donor class isn't going to be able to just sit back and say, the donor class is going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. That's what he said. Flashback to the Lincoln Project co-founder Rick Wilson in 2023. They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. The mainstream media has the audacity to say that Trump's rhetoric incites violence. So Rick Wilson, whether or not you want to call him someone who has an interest in younger men, and there's a word for that, at the very least is a world-class piece of shit. And what do world-class pieces of shit do? They act like world-class pieces of shit. And in respect of the incident that happened yesterday with Kristi Noem, this world-class piece of shit that is Rick Wilson said the following in respect. Here we go. This is him totally not lunging. Padilla getting what he wanted.
Senator Alex Padilla, I have questions.
I have questions.
The Secretary,
I have questions.
Because the fact of the matter is,
Get out.
a half a dozen.
And this is Bill Malugan, who's the national correspondent for Fox News. We have Rick Wilson saying, time to ID every one of these guys. Internet, do your thing. I'm going to give everybody this tweet so that you can retweet it, memorialize it, and maybe report it for inciting doxing, which is exactly what it is. This is a man who in the past said what he said about the donor class needing to, quoting Rick Wilson, put a bullet, end quote, in Donald Trump. Now saying time to ID the FBI agents, Secret Service, members of Kristi Noem's team. ID every one of these guys. Internet, do your thing. This is not a question of free speech. This is an absolute question of terms of service. And I think this violates Twitter versus terms of service. Also, this is a man that deserves to have his social media accounts terminated. Identify, internet, do your thing. Like what? Like dox the National Guard at the hotels that they're staying at so that they're forced to sleep in basements of undisclosed locations so that they can then take the pictures of that and try to blame Trump on it? Try to blame Trump for that? These people, I'll go to Tom McDonald all the time. They will kill you and they will make it the news. They will use the images of their own devastation for their own propaganda. And Rick Wilson, for doing that, I don't know, could he face charges? I don't know. Has James Comey been charged yet? No. Why would anyone stop? Why would anyone not continue to push that envelope? Has Padilla been charged? No. No, and by the way, when I say has Padilla been charged, again, this is not to weaponize anything. This is to enforce the law. Whether or not Kristi Noem's conference was an official government proceeding remains to be established. You all know exactly where I'm going with that. They went after the Jan 6ers for obstruction of a government proceeding, for protesting outside. Well, if this was a government proceeding, that sure as sugar was obstructing a proceeding. But maybe it's not an official government proceeding, and it doesn't qualify, therefore, under that statute of law. At the very least, mischief, public disturbance, I don't know. There's something there. And at the very least, if you investigate and then maybe misdemeanor trespass. I don't know if a senator can trespass in a secured building where he, by his employment, has the right to be. I don't know. Something tells me one could find a provision of law, even if it's a minor misdemeanor, to go after Padilla for, and they should. No good deed goes unpunished. And when Alina Habba dropped her charges against the Mayor Baraka, what did Baraka do? He thanked her with a civil lawsuit. If I'm not mistaken, he had the balls to sue her personally. Hold on one second. Did Mayor Baraka sue Habba personally? I'm fairly certain he did. Not just in her capacity of, but let me double check and let me make sure. Yes, Newark Mayor Ross Baraka sued Alina Habba personally, along with Department of Homeland Security agent Ricky Patel for false arrest, malicious prosecution, and defamation. The lawsuit filed on June 3rd, 2025, alleges that Habba, acting in her personal capacity, rather than as interim U.S. attorney for New Jersey, directed and ratified Baraka's unlawful arrest on May 9, 2025. At the Delaney Hall ICE facility and made defamatory statements about him on social media and in media interviews. The suit claims Habba's actions were politically motivated and not part of her prosecutorial duties. What a mother effer. So Alina Habba tries to show some good grace after Baraka was arrested for, I think it was trespass, drops the charges, and that's how he thinks. You know what she should have done? Maintain the charges. Make him either be found guilty, plead to whatever minor misdemeanor, pay a fine. There's no lawsuit against Alina Habba if those charges are maintained and if there's some sort of settlement or conviction at the end of the day. Maintain those charges. What do you think Padilla's going to do? In that interview, let me see if I can find the interview. In that interview, at the end of the question, one of them asked him, well, what are you going to do? And what's your plan here? You know, sue for false detainment, or whatever they call it, abusive detainment. Now I can't find the whole interview. I had the whole interview. I recorded it on my computer. They basically asked him, do you have any plans to sue? This isn't about me. I didn't get an apology, though, but it's not about me. I predict, over under, more likely than not that he's going to sue for false detainment, unlawful detainment. Press charges against him. Mischief. Make him pay a $500 fine. But they want to play holier than thou. They want to. We got to make sure we don't want the charges getting dismissed. That would make us. That would cause us to lose credit. Horse crap. You know what's causing a loss of faith and a loss of credibility is not fighting fire with fire. Just not even fighting. Press some charges. You go after James Comey for 8647. You have a lot fewer copycats. You go after Padilla for being an absolute jackass. You're going to have fewer of these Democrat activists acting a fool so that they can get the publicity that they want out of this. Say, boss. And I think that's all I have to say about that.